Greetings everyone. Today we have with us an amateur inventor, Marat Palmakhov. Marat, will you please tell us a little about yourself?
I was born in the city of Karaganda. I worked as an electrician for a certain period of time. Later I became a welder, then a plumber. But I worked in the construction sector and studied lots of things related to construction. And at the same time, I expanded my knowledge, learned what was going on in the world.
How did you come up with the idea of creating a fuel-free generator? What did it all start with?
It was announced that we would be hosting an expo and that a new source of energy needed to be brought out. I started researching what was available on the market and found out that there was, as it was considered, green energy. For example, solar batteries and wind generators. And I thought, why not discover something new? In surfing the internet, I found that it was impossible to create a perpetual motion machine. In fact, it is impossible to make one, but you can make a prototype so that it is almost perpetual, so that there would be least human intervention and least harm to the environment, preferably no harm at all. And when I started studying, I conducted a lot of experiments and tests at home, combined all of my knowledge, and came to the conclusion that it would not be easy to assemble it. Whatever engine I created, when a load was given to it, it stopped. But if the engine runs consistently, but does not produce voltage, then it will be useless. And I began to study further. While studying and expanding, I created my own self-running generator. It took me 8 years. Over 8 years, I conducted about 80 experiments of various configurations and assemblies. During the assembly, I found out the drawbacks and advantages and tried to remove all the drawbacks so that there were only advantages. For example, what I wanted was to make it environmentally friendly and composed of recyclable materials. Because when I was studying the field of solar and wind energy, I realized that solar panels and wind turbine blades are not recycled. That is why I started to make assemblies using readily available materials. And now, after 8 years of many trials, errors, tests, and studies, I have created my own standalone generator.
What difficulties did you face while creating this generator?
Lots of them. One of the difficulties was, as I mentioned, to create maximum efficiency while being less costly. During the development, I explored many structures and fields. All my designs were different, but all stemmed from one idea. I have to use a wheel, or more precisely, a large flywheel, but in different configurations. And the difficulty was in achieving minimal energy loss while maximizing energy output. While studying, I developed my own engine. It was powered by 12 volts, yet it delivered 220 or 380 volts, and even more. And it was its advantage. For the last 3 years, I've been focused on this study. I found a solution where I could have a 12-volt power supply that delivers a large amount of energy. To achieve this, I utilized all the laws of physics, including principle of lever, which means the longer the lever, the more energy would be transmitted. Based on this, I introduced a symbiosis, combining all the knowledge gained over 8 years of practice, and created my engine.
Marat, on what principles does your generator work?
I based it on principles of a hydroelectric power station. Water is supplied forcefully and spins the turbine. I created the same thing, only without water pressure, but with the help of a flywheel. A certain amount of water is supplied to the flywheel, which spins the pulley, and it will spin the generator, which in turn will power its own battery, its own pump, and will supply for further consumption. In principle, it's a loop. Water is supplied to the flywheel powers the generator. Then the generator feeds back to the pump and supplies power further. The larger the main flywheel, the more energy will be transferred via pulley to the generator.
As far as I understand, the power consumption of your generator is 12 volts and the power output is 220 volts. What is the maximum efficiency of your generator?
The efficiency of this generator is currently 80%, but we plan to increase it to 100%.
Does your generator need an additional external power supply?
The distinguishing feature of my generator is that unlike gasoline or diesel generators, as well as solar or wind generators, it requires nothing. Fuel will not be used as it operates without fuel. Similarly, climatic factors are not relevant because it does not operate from the sun or wind. It operates autonomously from there will be a small tank of water inside, let's say 50 or 70 liters, and it will power the device.
That is, it turns out to be completely self-feeding.
Yes.
Great. Does your generator have an operating life? I mean, how long will it be operating at most?
The minimum service life is from 5 to 20 years, but this will be determined during testing and practicing. How many years it will actually work, and how long it will be effectively operating.
Today, there are a lot of fuel-free generators in the world. So what makes your generator different from other FFGs and from green energy? Or what advantages does your generator have over others?
Let's take, for example, generators, diesel or gasoline. They run on fuel. They depend on fuel. So the first difference is that mine is practically silent. Second, it's not environmentally hazardous. There are no emissions, nothing is burned, no vapors. It can run on one charge. Say, charge is filling the tank with liquid for a week, 10 days, non-stop, 24/7, without worrying that it will stall. The most important thing is to regulate the water level. If the water evaporates a bit, just top it up and that's it. The difference from solar and wind is that solar panels operate, as they say, from the sun. They work when the sun is at its zenith. And we only have 6 hours of zenith sun at most. And during this time, they only give an efficiency of 16%. And the rest of the time, solar panels are not active. And besides that, they can generate electricity only in the evening, not during the day. During the day, they work as accumulators. For example, if you need a large amount of voltage, you need a large number of panels. Since they will take up a lot of space, their maintenance is also not easy. One aspect of maintenance is that they need to be cleaned often to prevent dust from covering them, to maintain efficiency. And another downside of solar panels is that when the temperature is above 35 degrees, they also don't work. The same goes for wind turbines. Their blades cannot be recycled. Where they are installed, they change local climate conditions. Strangely, the grass underneath tends to dry out, and they create low-frequency vibrations. And furthermore, they need wind, the minimum speed of which should be 7 kilometers per hour, and the maximum is 25, but not more. At high speeds, they break, and because of this, wind turbines often are not installed where there are strong winds but are placed in areas with minimal ones. The difference between my generator and theirs is that mine is environmentally safe, with fully recyclable components, completely clean, with absolutely no emissions, and it can operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in various climate conditions. For example, in cold fronts, or where the weather is cloudy, or in polar nights where solar panels cannot be used, this generator can operate because it is not dependent on the climate. It doesn't matter if it's day or night. Also, it doesn't matter if it's cold or hot. It will operate in any temperature fluctuations, ranging from plus 40 to minus 40.
Yet, the advantages here are obvious. But if, for example, an average family wants to install such a generator at home, what are the dimensions of your device?
Yes, that would be possible. For example, an average family needs around 5 kilowatts per hour for their home or apartment. The dimensions of a 5 kilowatt setup would be about the size of a small dresser, about 1.5 meters tall and 1.5 meters wide.
Let's say your generator could cover some household needs, heating in the house, electricity. But is it possible to provide the entire city with such an installation?
The entire city can easily be provided with both heating and electricity. Because as I mentioned earlier, there are no limitations on size and scale. It will be mass-produced. There won't be one large unit, but many small ones. And in case of one generator breaking down, they will compensate for each other. And there won't be any limitations. Whether you need kilowatts, megawatts, or gigawatts, They can be connected, combined, and expanded, both for cities and for villages. The advantage will be that you won't have to run cables for kilometers. You can install it right where the community is and just maintain and monitor its operation. As for maintenance, you'll only need to check it twice a year, in spring and autumn. In spring, after winter. In autumn, before winter. You'll need to do a checkup.
So actually, it cannot be limited to just a house, a city, but it can power even a whole country.
We can even power a whole country. It has no limitations. It all depends on what resources the power plant itself requires. Right now, the thermal power plant is fueled by oil or gas, and we need to find out what kind of technology and power plants are needed to power the city and how much energy will be needed. And according to the amount of this energy, the generator will be selected.
If an ordinary person would like to build such a generator, how feasible is it and how accessible are the components?
All the components are available. As I said, there's nothing complicated there. It uses simple metal profiles and aluminum structures. They are all available on the market. There are even different types of generators for micro hydropower plants and wind turbines. Everything is available on the market now, and anyone can assemble it. You don't have to be trained, and there are not any complicated designs.
That means if there is a scheme, then every person without invention skills can assemble this generator on their own. Is this correct?
If necessary. If a person says, I want to assemble it at home, we are ready to provide it, disassembled, and give it to him with drawings. And he will be able to assemble and install it at home. All the components will be on hand.
Excellent news. And tell me, how does your technology affect human health and the environment? Is there any impact?
This technology has no impact on the environment at all. It does not produce heat. It does not produce low-frequency vibrations. It also does not emit any rays. It works absolutely, autonomously indoors and at any temperatures. I have checked and tested it. In my engines, I use low-speed generators that make 300 revolutions per minute at most. And there are no chemical components. So when the generator is switched on, you can sleep, live without worrying about your health or the environment.
In these conditions, when our climate is changing and climate disasters happen, how realistic is it to use this technology to keep it going, and what is necessary for this?
It can be used in these situations. Why can, and even should it be used? For one simple reason, as I said, it isn't affected by thermal fluctuations, and also by what happens, for example, external factors, winds, rains, they will not affect it, and it will work safely. And in case of, let's say, mechanical damage, it will not be explosive. It can even be repaired and used further. And as for the climate, as you said, it will not have any negative effect on the climate, because it has no sound vibrations. There's also no thermal radiation. And on top of that, it doesn't have any harmful emissions or X-rays. Also, its components contain no complex chemical elements that will be released during the operation.
Are there any limitations in the usage of your device? Any disadvantages that are important for people to know about?
We haven't noticed any disadvantages yet, but we are still conducting tests, so to say, in vitro. But we will find out about the shortcomings later, during operation from the people. When the people, the consumers, use it, test it, then we will know where the shortcomings are, improve it further to make it better and better.
What are your plans for the future? Are you going to improve your machine in any way?
The further goal is to make it completely accessible for everyone, for all people, especially for farmers, those who live in the countryside, in the mountains and remote communities, in places where it is impossible to get a power line and there is no access to modern infrastructures. This is just the initial stage of production. I can say that I have finished the generator, but it still needs refinement. Refinement in what sense? Now, there will be practical experiments, tests. In addition to my own tests, people, consumers, will also conduct tests. When it is given to them, we will find out and ask what needs to be worked out, what improvements need to be made. What are the disutilities? What are the drawbacks? People will check and test it. They will test how it works, where it works, in what conditions it works, and what else is needed, what its pros and cons are. It has a lot of pros. If cons appear, we will try to mend them, because the process of mending always goes along the process of operating the equipment, not along the process of its creation.
How do you think, what conditions should be provided in society for us to completely switch to fuel-free generators?
For this purpose, society should make sure, see in practice, that it is really effective, safe, and environmentally friendly. There won't be any pathologies after it. There won't be any emissions. I think when society is convinced, it will gradually move on.
First of all, there should be a request from the society itself that we want to switch to FFG.
Yes. First of all, the society should be convinced that it is needed, that it is in demand. Then it will be possible to switch over.
Yes, then there will be an FFG in every house.
In every home, in every family.
Marat, thank you very much for such an interesting interview. You told us about your facility. Of course, it is vastly advantageous, and I would like this device, this FFG, to be in every house because it is safe for the environment and for humans. And lastly, do you have any wishes for our viewers?
Thank you. Well, my wish as an ordinary person is we should preserve our home we live in. Keep it as it has been created, pristinely perfect. Remain its good, blooming, and joy-giving for the future generations. A wish for scientists is study and develop. For inventors, I wish to invent, and most importantly, believe in yourself, in a good green future, in the fact that the world will be better, and try to make it better. Together, we will make the world a better place. This device consists of a generator, a main drum, a controller, an inverter, and a 12-volt battery. As for the specifications, this generator produces a power of 220 volts, 10 kilowatts. The controller transmits it to the battery, to the storage devices. The inverter is further used for consumption. The amperage can be increased. For example, if the battery is designed for 6 hours, it can be extended to 10 hours or even 20 hours of operation. It can be extended to days. It depends on the capacity of the batteries and how much power a person will consume. The unit will be resistant to temperature fluctuations. It will operate in both plus 50 and minus 40 degrees centigrade. Since there will be certain type of water inside, which will not freeze and will not evaporate too quickly, there will be a pump which will operate on 12 volts, 180 watts, which will supply water with a force of 2 liters per second to the main drum. That will spin the generator itself. The pump will be located in the reservoir that will be situated in an easily accessible place. It will supply water from the reservoir to the drum. And in case of pump failure, it can be easily replaced. The pump won't run on 220 volts, but on 12 volts, so it is technically safe, and it will operate on self-supply. Self-supply means that this device will generate 220 volts. It will have its own power supply unit with output 12 volts for self-sustainment, and the rest, which is 9 to 10 kilowatts, will be used for consumption. The main problem was that I had no funds, no resources to conduct experiments, tests for building the machine. Since no one provided resources, I had to find them myself. And it took me 10 years to develop and create everything. Since the resources mainly came out of my own pocket, I earned, collected, invested, and experimented on my own. We tested it for one day, checking the voltage output, how stable it can be. We also conducted welding work with instruments that were connected to electrical appliances and provided a load. We checked how long it would provide the load and how long it would take to charge the battery, restore it. And within 3 days, we found that this machine charges the battery in 8 hours, restoring energy. Further experiments will be conducted on a working prototype because this model is made on a reduced scale. This model is made to demonstrate the principle of operation, how it will work, what it will be used for, and what functions it will perform.